Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to... Oh, wait, I say welcome to, and the controller disconnects. That's an absolutely ideal start. Welcome to yet another JCC Network stream. My name is JP. A pleasure to be here, as always. And today we are here for 18 minutes of qualifying and a 50% race around the iconic Albert Park circuit here in Australia. And what a race we've got ahead of us. We were here last week to watch these 16 drivers take to the track. And once again, we are back here tonight for some more incredible action. But first, before we race, we must qualify. And we've got a Aston Martin coming out first. And that is the Aston Martin of Red Bull. Gets even more confusing every time I see it. But, oh well. We will live with it here in the Misfits Racing League. And Red Bull and the Aston Martin, we know that they've had ties together before, I believe up until 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Aston Martin and Red Bull had, I believe, a sponsorship deal going on. And that evidently went well for them. No championship titles in that time, but some great success in the hands of Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo. And Red Bull in the Aston Martin will hopefully try and replicate some of their best moments here tonight. Very hard, or I should say very easy actually, very easy to get track limit invalidations around this circuit. So definitely one the drivers are going to have to watch out for, especially in this qualifying session where you are pushing 110% to try and find time around the corners at what is really becoming an iconic circuit for Formula One racing. Red Bull just coming around the final of those corners now to begin his first flying lap then. And let's see where this can put the Aston Martin driver. I always get so close to saying the Red Bull driver because his name is Red Bull. It's very hard to distinguish the two, so do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any mistakes. Here we go then with Red Bull. It looks nice and clean thus far, and at the end of the day, smooth is fast. And that is at least what Sonny Hayes said in the very popular F1 movie, as he now makes his way through the second sector. And this is really where you need as little drag as possible. DRS opens wide. And this obviously in the race is a double DRS zone, so you get the DRS down here, and then you flick the car through the chicane, and then DRS opens up once more again. A little bit wide there for Red Bull going on to the rumble strips and the curb, but you wouldn't imagine that's something that's going to lose him great amounts of time. Just a few corners now here to go. Still easy to make a mistake through these final two, especially this final one here. So difficult to get the traction down, and he does scrape the wall as he comes out of the final corner, but no damage done to the front of that Aston Martin. Obviously goes to the top of the timesheets with a 1 minute 16.5, as then Max the Rat replaces him with a 1 minute 16.4, and Pistol Racing slots into P3 with a 1 minute 18.0. Slayer Hart now driving for the line in his V-Carb, goes P3 with a 16.7. And there is a Ferrari behind, I believe, of Big Davlar just going onto a lap, was weaving all the way down the main straight. So I can't imagine he was pushing, maybe invalidated his lap. El Humero goes into P4 with a 1 minute 17.1. And then his Sauber teammate Eden replaces him with a 1 minute 17.0. Very close between all the drivers so far, as there you can see Milster replaces his Aston Martin teammate in P2 with a 1 minute 16.5, just a mere 18 milliseconds ahead of his teammates. So very competitive down at Aston. Boakes will be the next driver to cross the line as Ray crosses it and sets a 17.8. Boakes crosses the line, 1 minute 22.1. You'd imagine a mistake has been made on that lap somewhere, maybe a trip onto the gravel, or maybe just a mistake, and Boakes deciding that lap was not worth completing. Big Davlar is not on a lap. He is still recharging the battery to go again. And then we've got King Fenrir, Ollie Southall and Liggs all on out laps, who will be looking to take to the track soon. Big Davlar, I do wonder, is he doing a double cooldown? He does have the fuel to do another lap here. Does look like he's pushing, and he is. So we'll stick on board then with the prancing horse of Big Davlar. Goes to P9 with that lap anyway, but obviously that was a cooldown lap, so you would really like to hope for Big Davlar that this will be quicker as he makes his way through the first sector now and into, I believe, turn number 3 of this Albert Park circuit. Always quite difficult to get around these corners. You've really got to try and carry as much speed as you can through these particular corners. But looks like it's going well so far for Big Davlar. That was very, very wide, though, on the exit. I don't know if the curb maybe upset the car on the exit there, but that is definitely not the sort of thing that you would want to be doing in a Formula 1 car, going that wide. But he continues on for the time being. He's 2.8 seconds up on his lap, and that is very wide through there, over the curb and over the grass. And again, definitely not the optimal racing line, but you would imagine it's still going to be quicker than the 1 minute 21.5 that he has at the minute. Max the Rat still on top of the timesheets with 11 minutes and 50 seconds to go of this qualifying session. Big Davlar just coming through the final few corners is going to complete this lap then. So where does it put the Ferrari as he drives to the line now? And the prancing horse stays P10, improves by 2.8 seconds. It's a 1:18.6. The two Hasses are coming through. That's going to be Hayes. So next driver to set a lap will be Ollie. And he is in the Works Mercedes-Benz this weekend, just making his way through the third and final sector of this particular circuit. Gets nice and onto the curbs through there, which I would say is exactly what you want to do. Ollie just into the penultimate corner, likes to run it very wide and then snap it back in for the final corner. Such a hard exit that corner is. Very hard to get the traction down. Ollie Southall goes into P7 then. Next driver to cross the line, I believe Liggs isn't on a lap. Fenrir isn't on a lap. Davlar isn't on a lap. El Humero is not on a lap. So we'll join Max then, current provisional pole sitter, and he is invalidated at turn 1. So definitely not going to be watching any more of that lap. I think everything's just calming down for the time being. King Fenrir invalidated his lap, but he will be going on to a new lap now. Durex is just going on to a lap in the other Works Mercedes-Benz. Liggs is just coming to the line. I believe that was a cooldown lap. Yes, a 1 minute 40 nearly for Liggs. You would hope that's not a competitive lap time anyway, as he makes his way through the turn 1 and 2 complex. Durex has invalidated his lap somewhere in that sector 1 stretch of the track. So Liggs, I do believe, will be the next man to set a fast lap on this circuit. King Fenrir is just coming to the end of sector 1. It's a 26.7 split for the Williams. His Williams teammate just a bit further ahead on the track, and that sky is looking very gloomy. I do wonder if potentially there's a threat of some rain at some point in this qualifying session, with how many drivers are coming out very, very early in this session. I do wonder if maybe there's going to be a spot of rain towards the end. Liggs is just coming through the inaugural part of the final sector. We'll have a few cars of traffic to negotiate through. The Haas moves very cleanly out of the way. Only one Haas running so far, so that will be Max the Rat. As very deep there into the penultimate corner goes Liggs. Will complete this lap anyway, but that is definitely not where you want to be. If he was driving a rally car, that's probably where you would want to be. Liggs stays 14th though with a 1 minute 18.8, but we know that he will have more time in the bag. H1 Jab is now on his lap, just coming towards the end of the second sector. His Ferrari teammate Big Davlar currently in 13th. Would definitely want to improve on that. It's a 44-2 middle sector split, I do believe. And he now makes his way through the final couple of corners. Yellow flags flying. That will just be 4 drivers getting out the way for the time being, as most drivers actually on a lap currently, so might be quite hard to try and find some empty track to get a good lap time in. And Albert Park normally is a bit of a struggle to try and find some clean air. H1 Jab comes across the line and goes into P8 with a 1 minute 17.0. And you can already see 3 drivers in the 1 minute 17.0s. Very, very close racing between all of these. Everyone set a lap apart from Durex, who invalidated his first lap, is now in the pits. And I imagine he will be coming back out absolutely any time. Max the Rat obviously invalidated his lap. He is coming into the pit lane. Milster has also invalidated. And just as I said at the start of this session, invalidations can be so crucial around this circuit. And that really could shake up the grid if people do keep invalidating. El Humero is just coming around the final corner to start his lap. Eden is not on a lap. King Fenrir is in the pits. H1 Jab we just saw complete his lap. Ollie Southall's on an out lap. Pistol Racing, I believe, is on a cool down lap. Boakes is just going onto a fast lap by the looks of it. Ray is just about to complete a lap. Stays in P13, but does get some time improvement by about 2/10. Big Davlar also on a lap. But we're going to switch our attention to Red Bull, who is coming through the final corner now. Needs about a 18 millisecond improvement to beat his teammate. Does way better than that and goes to provisional pole by 0.4 of a second. And that is a big, big gap for Max to try and overturn. A 1 minute 16.0. That is a great lap from Red Bull, who came out first, showed his intention to get on the track as early as possible. And that is a formidable lap. And it's going to be hard for anyone to try and match that. His teammate Milster has literally just gone past him and will now try and respond to that. But is there a response from absolutely anybody? We'll have to see. Milster is just coming through the second sector now. And we will see what lap time this brings the Aston Martin. 1 minute 16.5 needs about, what is that? About, let's say, a 20 millisecond improvement to gain on the Haas ahead of him. Needs about a 0.5 improvement to go ahead of his teammate, currently on provisional pole. 5 minutes 45 seconds left of this qualifying session. Still plenty of time for drivers to get back to the pits and set laps, but you definitely want to be setting your best laps at the end of the session. But these laps do definitely still count. Milster comes to the flag. It's a 1 minute 16.3 and we are now left with an Aston Martin 1-2. And this session really starting to spice up. Max the Rat is out on an out lap. He will definitely want to improve. El Humero needs about a 0.2 improvement to go ahead of the Haas driver. And is racing his way through the second sector now. He is 3.5 tenths up as he reaches that second sector split. So this is going to be a lap that we want to keep watching from El Humero, running that beautiful Sauber livery. I don't really know what you call that. A paint splatter livery, maybe? But whatever it is absolutely gorgeous. And it's very quick in the hands of El Humero. He's just coming through the final corner now. Is there time game in it? He was 3.5 tenths up. Come through the middle sector. Is there position improvement? There is. He goes to P2, splits the Aston Martins with a 1 minute 16.2. And that is a good lap from the Sauber driver. Max the Rat will now try and respond. Slayer Hart is also in that fight and will try and respond. H1 Jab is also in that fight, and he will be the next of the big hitters to cross the line, so we will stick on board with him, although now he has gone into non-ERS mode, so I guess he maybe had an issue on that lap. Slayer Hart will cross the line literally just behind Max the Rat, so it'll be interesting to see what lap times they can both lay down. First man to set those laps will be Max the Rat as he makes his way through the final couple of corners. Is there time gain in it for the Haas driver running that beautifully orientated Sakura livery? And Max the Rat is coming into the pit lane, so evidently no time improvement for him, and he's coming into the pit. Slayer Hart, however, will continue with this lap, runs onto the grass out of the final corner, and that is going to lose him a lot of time. He does get out of the way and abort that lap as the Williams driver comes across the line. I believe that's Liggs to start his next lap. Billy Mewis in the chat saying Ollie, Durex, Lig and Fenrir all getting top 7 Well, let's go through that then. Ollie Southall currently sat in P12. Durex currently sat in P11. Liggs currently last of all the runners in P16. King Fenrir currently in 10th. So all of them would have to improve to make that prediction come true. And with 2 minutes 55 seconds left of qualifying, there isn't much time for them to do it. But we've got about a half and half here, really, of drivers in the pits and drivers out on track. We're currently watching Liggs, who is just making his way towards the Sector 2 split. It is a 44.1, only a tenth up on his lap, and needs really about a 2-second improvement if he wants to break in to that top 7. Like Billy says, Liggs just coming through the final sector. He did have trouble on his lap, did Liggs, at this particular corner. Gets it slowed down enough on this occasion. Still a little bit deep, but is there time in it for Liggs as he comes around the final corner? Is it top 7 worthy like Billy thinks? It isn't. Only P14 for Liggs. It's a 1 minute 17.4. And unless he's fueled that car to go for two runs, that will be his session over. But the track now, very, very active as drivers all get on to try and improve. Hayes just going onto his lap now. Ray is just about to finish his lap. Needs a big improvement if he wants to improve from P16. And he does improve to P12. It's a 1 minute 17.1. He might have time to go for another if he's got the fuel. But now, this is where the laps really count. Hayes has invalidated his lap. Does look like he'll have the fuel to go again. Eden is just going onto his lap as well. As you can see there, the Mercedes escaping off the road to try and let him through. Eden for Sauber has invalidated, not invalidated, he's aborted that lap. But we will watch Red Bull then as he comes through turn 1 and 2. I believe he's going to be the first of the big hitters to set a run, as Milster has invalidated his lap, and that's going to be his qualifying over. He will start a best of 3rd. Red Bull has also aborted his lap, and there's surely not enough time for him to set another one. There isn't. So that's Red Bull's qualifying over. So it's all going to come down to Max the Rat and El Humero. You'd imagine they're the two drivers that are in the fight for pole position. El Humero is going to get the best track conditions as he just goes onto his lap now. But it's Max the Rat who is looking to perform already. The Haas driver, he needs a fairly large improvement to improve to pole position. And he's only 27 milliseconds up. And that was right over the curb. And he's invalidated. So now all eyes turn to El Humero, as he is the only man that can disengage Red Bull from pole position, and he's been held up, and that is going to be his lap over as the Williams. I didn't see who that was. It wasn't King Fenrir, so it must have been Liggs then getting in the way on the racing line, and surely that then gives Red Bull pole position unless someone like Eden can improve. Eden's not up on his lap. Boakes is just coming to the line. He isn't up. Boakes doesn't improve. Davlar isn't on a lap. That's surely going to be qualifying over for the front runners. King Fenrir is on a lap. Next driver to cross the line will be Durex in the Works Mercedes. Currently sat P11 with a 1 minute 17.1. Is there time in it for the Mercedes-Benz driver? He comes round the final corner now. And this is going to be crunch time for Mercedes. Currently 11th and 13th. Durex crosses the line, goes into P6 with a mighty lap at the end. Fenrir then displaces him, knocks him down to P7 as Fenrir goes into P6. Ollie Southall won't get another lap. Davlar won't get another lap. Neither will Pistol Racing. Liggs won't get another lap either. Neither will Hayes. That is your qualifying over, ladies and gentlemen. And it is Red Bull on pole position with a beauty of a lap around this Albert Park circuit. Absolutely perfecting the track layout here. And Red Bull claims pole position. And there is your classification, ladies and gentlemen. 2.5 tenths clear of the driver behind. That is a massive gap in Formula 1 league racing. It's El Humero who lines up alongside him on the front row of the grid. It's Milster in third with H1 Jab in fourth place. Max the Rat in fifth with King Fenrir sixth. Durex seventh with Slayer Heart in eighth. Eden is in ninth with Boaks in 10th. Big Davlar 11th. Ray 12th with Ollie Southall 13th. Pistol Racing 14th. Liggs 15th. And Hayes bringing up the back of the pack in 16th. Well, don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. That was an intense qualifying session, and I guarantee you the race will be even better. The Grand Prix is up next. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. No formation lap. Straight into the action here in Australia as it's lights out and away we go. Red Bull gets a good start from pole position, but El Humero is with him into turn one and they are wheel to wheel. The racing line favours Red Bull though, and he leads out of turn one. It's El Humero in second. Good start from H1 Jab in the Ferrari. He makes up a position on Milster as Durex and Eden do battle. And there's a bit of a spinner there, and that's Max the Rat, ghosted into ghost mode, all the way down now into 13th place. A horrible start, and there's big contact, and that's Boakes in the Alpine, straight round and damage for the Alpine driver. But out in front for Red Bull, he is out cleanly. El Humero in second is with him, and the Ferrari making up a position on the Aston. Great start from Hayes, up 6 positions already. Max the Rat already up back into 11th place, so already making a comeback. Eden already with a 3-second penalty, and there's Big Davlar going very wide through the chicane, and that is not a line you would want to take very often. He's now down to 9th. Eden arguably with the best start besides Hayes, but with a 3-second penalty, that will not be helping him. We look to the tyre game, and it is all medium there as there's a car going off, and that's Ollie Southall with massive damage and off into the gravel, and now diving into the pit lane, as is our best race starter, FLVN Hayes. You'd imagine Boakes will join them in the pits. No, he stays out, so evidently the damage not too bad to that Alpine. But into lap 2 of 29 we go now, and Red Bull leads cleanly. It's El Humero in second with H1 Jab in third, and these three very close together. It's then Milster who's running in fourth. Durex with a brilliant start, but just outside of DRS. Will struggle to keep Eden behind. Does have a little bit more battery to play with though, and Eden running very wide. Slayer Hart in 7th place with King Fenrir in 8th. Slayer Hart with a great exit is looking to try and get up to the back of that Sauber. And the Ferrari is gaining on the Sauber, but doesn't look like there's going to be enough for a move, although he is draining the battery and he is gaining on the Sauber. Looks like he's just going to have to stick behind for the time being though. Elsewhere, Eden is getting a move on, and we're 3 abreast here. Somehow they managed to get through cleanly. It's Eden that comes out on top. It's then Durex in 6th and Slayer Hart remains 7th, but now the outside line for the penultimate corner. Is that going to favour Slayer Hart as it now turns to the inside of the final corner? Slayer Hart with an opportunist move gets through. Now King Fenrir looks to the inside of Durex. A little bit of a wobble as they make contact. Fenrir just drawing ever closer, has to back out of it into turn 1 though, but now with the DRS, is there a better opportunity opening up for the Williams driver? Switches to the outside line, just not enough straight line speed, not laid enough on the brakes, and he will stay in 8th for the time being. Big Davlar and Max the Rat battling away behind him. Out in front, Red Bull just beginning to build his lead a little bit. The gap now 9/10 of a second. El Humero still in that DRS duct, but H1 Jab much, much closer to El Humero than El Humero is to Red Bull, and is now just falling out of the DRS. He will get a double dose of DRS, which will help him claw back to the rear wing of that Aston Martin, as we see Max the Rat managing to get past Big Davlar. Max somehow not picking up any damage in all that commotion on lap 1. He is the highest placed hard runner as Slayer Hart manages to get through on Eden, runs very wide in the process, but keeps the move, and that is a good move there from the V car. This pack already 4.3 seconds behind the top 4 though. The top 4 having an absolute dream out in front, and as the cars battle behind, that is only going to grow bigger. El Humero managing to get himself right back up to the back of Red Bull and keep himself in the DRS. H1 Jab is gaining, but definitely not close enough into turn 3 to think about a move. It's Milster who's currently in 4th place. It's then Slayer Hart in 5th. Eden currently in 6th. Again with that penalty, and there was contact we heard back there. I can't see any remnants of damage or anything, but that sounded like quite the hefty hit, I must say. And I believe it might have been Max the Rat, because he now does have front wing damage, missing that right side end plate, and you can see the understeer that it's giving him through that fast right-hander, just not able to get on the throttle as quickly as he would have liked, and that is going to help King Fenrir in his attempt to stay ahead. Milster is just starting to drop a bit off the back of the top 3 now, but again, that DRS will help him keep with them. Now Humero is really getting up close to the back of Red Bull and will surely have a great chance as we go down the main straight to begin lap 5. Red Bull already looking like he's maybe either cracking under the pressure or just using up his tyres a little bit too much, not bringing them in softly and kindly. And El Humero is surely going to have a great chance down into turn 1. He is gaining, looks to the inside, backs out of it, and will now try and line up an attempt, but he's gone wide, and very wide indeed, and round he goes, as does H1 Jab, as they both make contact. I don't think the Ferrari expected the Sauber to have a moment like that, and an incident like that now gives us an Aston Martin 1-2 in this race. H1 Jab continues on in 3rd without any damage. El Humero down to 11th place though. It's not massive damage on the front wing of that Sauber. He's just missing an end plate, but as we saw with Max de Rat, that is going to harm him absolutely massively. His Big Davlar has actually managed to get past the Haas driver, and Pistol Racing is now going to have his own attempt at the Haas driver, moves to the inside line. Is there enough of a gap for him? There most certainly is, and the Red Bull breezes past up into 9th, maybe even looking for a move on the Ferrari. Just has to sit behind for the time being and runs very wide in his attempt to do so. Pistol Racing off of the track. El Humero surely is going to go through. Liggs also goes through. Ray might have an opportunity on the inside. Isn't able to do anything for now. But that is Pistol Racing. Was attacking for 9th. Now down to 12th with that mistake. And Milster, crucially, has managed to get in the DRS of Red Bull. Now, will we see some team games go on here as they use the DRS to try and jag each other away from each other? Or is H1 Jab maybe going to have an opportunity to try and catch up if those two Aston Martins begin to battle? Slayer Hart has obviously managed to catch up with them after that contact, as El Humero does come into the pit lane to get rid of that damaged front wing. Slayer Hart just teetering on the edge of that DRS duct, but unfortunately for him, it won't be DRS on this lap. A man that will be getting DRS is Durex on the back of Eden. And Eden does look a bit of a sitting duck. 1.6 seconds. He hasn't got any ERS either. 1.6 seconds behind the car ahead of him, I should clarify. And Durex really is now reeling him in. A big snap there for Eden as well as we go through the chicane. Fenrir is also on the back of this. If this comes to blows, no gap down the inside for the Works Mercedes for the time being. And that gap between Milster and H1 Jab is just beginning to open itself up a tad. And that DRS is really helping Milster get to where he needs to be and just drag him away a bit. As Slayer Hart is now in the DRS of him. Durex gets up into 5th as Eden comes into the pits, as does Big Davlar. So that will promote practically all the drivers up a position. Slayer Hart will not get the DRS as it's a double DRS zone once more, but now well and truly in that DRS duct, and will surely have a great chance of trying to snap 3rd place away from the Ferrari. Only thing is, he does have a 3-second penalty, but that won't matter until we cross the flag on lap 29. Only on lap 7 so far. Plenty of more laps to go. And Slayer Hart, this will be his first opportunity to attack the Ferrari. The Ferrari with plenty of battery though. And Slayer Hart's accepted already that he won't be getting the move done into here. Just taking care of his tyres and his battery for the time being. Again, just using a bit of overtake to drag himself a bit closer. Knows he won't be able to go for a move here and sits behind for the time being. Eden manages to get past Hayes and up into 11th place after coming in to repair his front wing, I believe, or potentially there was a bit of a spin for the Sauber driver, as 2nd place Milster now dives into the pit lane then, and Slayer Hart isn't really gaining as much as he'd like on the Ferrari. The Ferrari looks to have quite a low downforce setup here, which is keeping him ahead of the V-Carb. Also has plenty of battery, does the Ferrari, so that will be helping him as well. Milster emerges onto the track in 8th place. Good little pocket there for him to get out into, right behind the Williams driver of Liggs. And is this maybe the undercut attempt on his teammate? His teammate is using a hell of a lot of battery, as now H1 Jab picks up a penalty, so that evens things out between himself and Slayer Hart. But Red Bull does look like he's pushing, potentially, on an in-lap. Those medium tyres, I would have expected them to go a little bit longer. I do maybe wonder if the 2-stop is the preferred strategy in this race for the drivers. It would certainly look that way with the way things are going, as Slayer Hart does manage to get through on the Ferrari and up into 2nd place. Durex is just losing a bit of time to the pair of them, but obviously will gain a little bit of time back as they battle. The Ferrari will have a great chance of a move down into turn 1. Red Bull did not come in that lap, so you would imagine the undercut will work for Milster as Durex comes into the pits. Milster now with a bit of clean air as well to push on into. Next driver ahead of him will be Max, who has been on those hard tyres, I believe, from the start of the race. But Red Bull just looking to push on a little bit and try and minimise the undercut loss as much as possible. Build himself a bit of a tyre delta, as Pistol Racing also comes into the pit lane. Fits new medium tyres, so I believe that will be a 2-stop then for Pistol Racing, as he's gone medium. Max using absolutely all of the track he can, but Milster is really gaining on him. A second gained already just through the first sector of this lap, and that is only going to come down as the Ferrari of H1 Jab manages to get back through on Slayer Hart. Will have the DRS as well to try and pull himself away. A little bit of a poorer exit, but now the DRS overspeed really starts to kick in. And there you can see Slayer Hart just braking as late as he can. A little bit of a love tap to the back of the Ferrari just to let him know he's there. And Slayer Hart now demoted to 3rd again, but I get the feeling this battle will not be over for a while to come. Red Bull comes into the pit lane, so this now becomes a battle for the race lead as Red Bull comes in to get service. Hard tyres for Red Bull. Now the question is, where does he come out relative to his teammate? His teammate is just coming round the final corner now. He's just coming down the pit lane. It's going to be close between the two Aston Martins, as there you can see, there is Red Bull, and into turn 1 we go. This is going to be very close between them. Milster manages to get out by the skin of his teeth, but Red Bull with a massive, well, I say a massive, it seems massive with how bad the tyre degradation is around here. A massive tyre delta, and this is going to be a straight fight now as Red Bull has to scrap his way past his teammate back into the lead. And the crucial thing is, Milster has DRS. Red Bull, I don't believe he will, unless he just managed to get into it on the exit there. He did. That is massive for Red Bull's race. Milster has DRS on Max the Rat, and this is going to be an important move for him to try and put a car between himself and his teammate. This would be massive for Milster to execute this move now. He is gaining, but Max is deploying that overtake, and this will really be helping Red Bull through the slower corners where Max isn't going to have as much grip. Milster looking for quite an unorthodox move here, and this is only going to bring Red Bull into it. Max, fair play to him, very sportsmanlike, decides to get out of the way of the lead battle, and Red Bull now can chase down his teammate with the DRS, and this is surely going to give the position to Red Bull. He comes down the main straight, and that is the position for Red Bull as Max the Rat is losing a hell of a lot of positions. Looks like maybe a spin out of the final corner, and big damage for Max the Rat, and that is huge for this race. Max, always a very quick driver in really any conditions, as there's even more contact as I believe him and Durex make their way into the wall. No damage for the Mercedes driver. Max falls even further down, and now without a front wing at all, and only in Sector 1, this is going to be a slow climb for him back to the pits. He's very sportsmanlike, is Max, getting out the way to make sure he doesn't ruin anyone else's race, but now is going to be holding up the Red Bull a little bit, manages to get out the way, and is going to let the Alpine through as well. Dives off the racing line to let the Alpine through. But Max the Rat, you have to figure, unless there's some sort of safety car, that is his race over. In all that, Red Bull obviously managed to get past Milster, and Red Bull is pulling a gap on his teammate. The gap just over a second now, and I believe that there is the DRS detection line. Milster was not within the range, so he will not get DRS on his teammate, although Red Bull does have a 3-second penalty. That could change the landscape of things. So the two Aston Martins running 1 and 2 once again. It's Eden who's currently in third, with Slayer Hart and H1 Jab still battling away. Came into the pits on the very same lap. Slayer Hart managing to get ahead and will get the DRS. We've got a yellow flag for Ollie Southall out of the penultimate corner, and he is making his way into the pit lane. Is the Works Mercedes driver. 9 laps on those hard compound tyres, and maybe just looking to get rid of those. It's medium tyres that go on for Ollie, and it looks like it might be a bit of a stretch to take those to the end of the race, but you might as well risk it. Ollie, you're down in 16th place. Max the Rat finally makes his way into the pit lane and gets a new front wing on that Haas car, albeit 24 seconds behind the closest car to him. Big Davlar manages to get through on Ray and up into 7th place, as Eden, you can see, battling away with Slayer Hart, and this is all getting very close as we've got H1 Jab who's right behind them as well, and this is a great camera angle here as we go under the bridge, and you can see how close these 3 cars are, and there a little bit of contact, and wide Slayer Hart is pushed, and that's surely going to allow H1 Jab through. It is. Now we're going to go 3 abreast. It's not going to be 3 abreast into turn 1, as without the DRS, Eden is no fight, and round the outside then goes Slayer Hart. Beautiful move there from Slayer Hart to be able to get through there on the outside line. Lovely stuff from the V car. Moves himself up into 3rd place. It's the Ferrari man of H1 Jab in 4th, and it's Eden in 5th place. And the Ferrari there running very, very wide will give Slayer Hart a little bit of a gap, but not anything that's really going to keep him safe. And the top 2 now 8.4 seconds clear of the rest of the field, and surely that is only going to grow as this, well, now 4-car train as King Fenrir joins in the fun as well. They keep battling away. That is only going to lose them time. As here comes the Ferrari, then on the V-carb, towards the inside line. Surely this is going to be a piece of cake move. Slayer Hart will try it round the outside to try and defend his position. Won't get a better exit, though, after being on the curb for all that time. And it finally comes to blows between these two that have been battling for what feels like all race long. Slayer Hart and H1 Jab make contact, and it is the Ferrari that comes off worse. He's now down to 10th place. Lucky for him, he's got no damage, but will now need to execute a major comeback if he is to get back in this race. Slayer Hart continues on in 3rd. It's Eden now in 4th, with King Fenrir in 5th. And that is heartbreak for the Tifosi and for a Ferrari team who were expecting a brilliant result here today. They were running 3rd and 6th at one point, but that contact, it seemed inevitable with how closely they were running, and eventually something like that had to happen. And unfortunately for H1 Jab, he is the driver that came off worse. But this battle will not stop because of that. It now simply just changes seats, and it's now Slayer Hart versus Eden in the Sauber. And will Eden maybe be a little more precautious as he's seen what just happened? As we now race our way into the final sector and surely into turn 1, Eden is going to have a beautiful chance of trying to get past, but he's also got to make sure he's looking in his mirrors because King Fenrir will not hang about, and if you give him a gap, he will most certainly go for it in the Williams, especially being one of the only drivers not to have picked up a penalty thus far. Will go on board with the Williams as we've got a yellow flag in the final sector, and that's El Humero backwards out the final corner. You can see there's an end plate there as well. He's got damage and he's coming into the pit lane, and El Humero having a torrid race so far. And this is not where he would want to be. If you look at the position change, he's down 12 places, started P2, and now down to 14th. Might even be 15th as Ollie Southall now makes his way out of the final corner, and it will be 15th. For El Humor, Ollie Southall does go through. Only man yet to pit is Ray for VCarb, currently down in 13th place. While all that commotion was going on, Red Bull and Milster, really, there is a gap between them now. 1.8 seconds, now 1.9 seconds between the two Aston Martins, and Red Bull just looks to try and command this race now. 8.9 seconds is the gap to Slayer Hart behind. Eden and King Fenrir still in pursuit. Durex is fighting away with Big Davlar. H1 Jab up into 8th and is now trying to claw back some of that lost time as Big Davlar now makes his way into the pit lane, and that will release Durex to try and race his way towards that 3-car fight of Slayer Hart, Eden and King Fenrir. 5.3 seconds is the gap. Definitely not an easy gap to try and bring down, especially when you've got what you can imagine is quite an angry H1 Jab right behind you that is looking to execute a comeback. Ray now finally makes his way into the pit lane, changes his front wing as well. Hayes also comes into the pits. That's just a normal pit stop. Hard tyres for him. We've got a yellow flag. That was for a Ferrari, and it looked like that was for Davlar in the first sector, but can't see any issues with that car, so maybe just a bit of a wobble as King Fenrir does finally manage to get through on Eden, and Slayer Hart has taken that opportunity to, well, quite frankly, sod off in front of 4th and 5th. The gap now 1.8 seconds, and King Fenrir and Eden, that 3-car battle now becomes a 2-car battle as the V-Carb decides he doesn't want to be involved in that anymore and he'd rather execute his own race. Lap 17 of 29 of this Australian Grand Prix, and it is an Aston Martin 1-2 here in Albert Park. Red Bull leads Milster by 2.6 seconds. It is then Slayer Hart in 3rd, who, as we were just saying, has decided he doesn't want to be part of that battle anymore and has just moved himself away. 2.2 seconds. Eden does have that 3-second penalty. Currently a 4.5 second gap to the Mercedes-Benz behind him, so won't have to worry about that, but will definitely not want to be losing time to the car behind. The only issue is Durex does have a tyre advantage on him as Pistol Racing and Boaks both come into the pit lane now. They will emerge in 10th and 11th place. And really, the closest battle on track now is between Ray and El Humoro. El Humoro not having the race that he would have dreamt of when he came to Albert Park today. Is Ray going to try it down the inside at turn 1? Definitely thinks about it. Runs onto the grass on the exit. And I can tell you for sure that is not the optimal racing line. Loses a handful of time in doing so, and will now have to try and recharge that battery pack and go for it again when possible. Ollie Southall is just gaining up to the back of Hayes, but on those 5-lap warm mediums, are they going to have enough grip if and when he gets to the rear wing of the Red Bull? Eden is still gaining on King Fenrir as Max sets the fastest lap of the race on soft compound tyres. You might as well try and give yourself some enjoyment, and he will, you would imagine, take that particular honour here tonight. Eden still gaining on the back of the Williams, but just not long enough of a straight for the Sauber driver to try and make a move past. Ollie Southall is really beginning to gain on the back of the Red Bull. A little bit of understeer through the penultimate corner we go now with him, and maybe the setup just not dialed in as Ollie would want. Said that he got impeded in qualifying. 3 cars all sat on the racing line when he went for his final fastest lap attempt. And look at the gap out in front, ladies and gentlemen. 3.9 seconds now between the two Aston Martins. Red Bull, with that penalty, knew that he needs to get a 3-second gap. Well, he is making light work of that. Still plenty of time to go. 11 laps. Anything can happen here in Formula 1. But Ollie Southall is just being dropped a bit now by Hayes. In the closest battle, as so many times have been said in Formula 1, Ferrari versus Mercedes. Ferrari with a penalty So we'll want to try and get through as quickly as possible, and then will rejoin that battle of Eden and Fenrir, who conveniently, as I say that, come into the pit lane. So that will then promote the Mercedes and Ferrari up into P4 and 5 as the Ferrari manages to go through on the inside. And just like taking candy from a baby, that is as easy as a move as you will ever see here at Albert Park. It is hard tyres for the Sauber and the Williams, and they both emerge in 6th and 7th places. And please, for the love of all that's holy, don't make any memes about 6-7 in the chat, or I will turn it off immediately, as Durex now begins to chase the Ferrari back once more. They have got a big gap out in front if they want to try and get up towards the podium positions. We'll take a quick look at the penalty situation. It's 3 seconds for Red Bull, Slayer Hart, Eden, Pistol Racing, Liggs, Ollie Southall and Ray. And then it is 6 seconds for both Ferraris. And yes, that is everyone with a 6-second penalty. So most people doing very well as we've got a retirement, and that is the Haas of Max. And he is out. If we can try and see where he's crashed. That is a big crash there. And a very unconventional place to crash. Almost 3/4 of the way down the main straight. And our first safety car is deployed here in Australia. Now the crucial part of that is the 2 Red Bulls came past the pit lane. Slayer Hart did not. Both Ferraris did not. Neither did the Works Mercedes. Eden will stay out. Fenrir will stay out. So this will potentially benefit them if they can get their foot down and go past. But the 2 Aston Martins, you would imagine, will have to come into the pit lane. Although you would imagine with the time they had out in front, they will be safe. 21 seconds out in front, to be exact, after Slayer Hart made his pit stop. So you would imagine they will have enough time to get into the pits. But with double stacking, of course, Milster could really be in a spot of bother here as the safety car is out. And this is surely going to be quite a light sprint to the end of the race. And it was Max on those soft compound tyres. It was definitely a risky choice. I would have assumed that he was doing it just to get the fastest lap, as his race really wasn't going well. But 3 laps, evidently, the tyre degradation, worse than we thought here in Australia. And surely Milster is going to be compounded by double stacking. The gap now 12 seconds as the 2 Aston Martins are stuck behind the safety car and the V-Carb can push with the Delta. I think we're going to be in a position here where Slayer Hart's going to take the lead of the race. On the medium compound tyres, they now can make their way into the pit lane. Red Bull does. Milster obviously has to as well. Will slow down to try and minimise the time loss. Slayer Hart comes through the final corner. Slayer Hart now leads the Australian Grand Prix. They get to servicing Red Bull's car. Milster is getting massively held up here as he now only just makes his way into the pit lane. Eden goes through. King Fenrir goes through. Red Bull is now coming out onto the racetrack. Will he come out ahead of the Ferrari? He will. But Milster, who was right behind his teammate, is only going to come out in 8th position. And that is a horrible scene for Aston Martin, who were running 1 and 2 for so long and looked to have it secure. But in the blink of an eye, their race has been turned upside down, and a 1-2 has turned into a 4-8. And this is not going to be easy for them to get back through. Slayer Hart now leads then. It's Eden who runs in 2nd place with King Fenrir in 3rd. Then we find our pole sitter Red Bull in 4th position. And this is the first time that Red Bull's really going to have to do some overtaking. So the pressure now most certainly, you would imagine, is on the Aston Martin's shoulders. Has led this race pretty much all race long. Now looks to try and find a way past. You would imagine the safety car will be in next lap, given where the likes of El Humero, Ray and Ollie Southall are at. El Humero will definitely be one to watch. Started 2nd on the grid, although doesn't have new tyres. Most of the grid does. El Humero actually has the most worn tyres on the grid, so maybe not going to be making the sort of comeback he would have wanted. Big Davlar will definitely be one to watch in 11th place, but after seeing how Max's race ended on the soft compound tyres, Big Davlar may struggle a little bit, as we are going to come across the line for another lap under the safety car, and it is Slayer Hart that leads, and the complexion of this race has really turned around in the space of about 2 minutes here. Absolutely incredible stuff, and that really shows you can never take your eye off of Formula 1, because in a split second, anything can happen. Boakes comes into the pits, and you would imagine will come out dead last after making a pit stop under the safety car. That is the case for Boakes. He will emerge in 15th place. But this race really now turns into what will be an epic sprint until the end. Lap 22 of 29. We will go racing on lap 23. That will leave us with 6 racing laps to decide the Australian Grand Prix. And Slayer Hart, for the first time this race on merit, leading the Australian Grand Prix, and now we'll have to try and defend. The only issue is King Fenrir, you would argue, is best placed. Yes, he's on hard compound tyres, but he's got the track position and doesn't have a penalty. He's the only man in the top 5 to not have a penalty. Safety car is in this lap. Bernd Mailander will stand on the loud pedal and drive away from the rest of the field, and that will leave Slayer Hart to become the de facto safety car. And it is now a question of when will he go. It is a very, very long straight down here at Albert Park, so you would imagine he will want to go as late as possible, or will he want to try and catch people by surprise and go a little bit earlier, as they will probably be expecting what I am expecting. He will need a very good safety car restart, because with those 3 seconds of penalties, he'll want to get a big of a gap as he can. He's gone out of the final corner. Eden has gone with him. King Fenrir is a bit further behind. Red Bull is all over the back of the Williams, and we go racing on to lap 23 here in Australia. It's Slayer Hart that leads, from Eden in second place. King Fenrir now does pick up a time penalty. He's the man in third. Red Bull already gaining on the back of him and potentially towards the inside. Just not enough braking distance to try and make a move. It's H1 Jab in 5th, with Durex currently 6th place. It's Pistol Racing in 7th. Milster is in 8th and will look to surely make a comeback after being 2nd nearly all race long. It's Liggs who runs in 9th. Big Davlar is in 10th place. And now surely Red Bull will be giving it absolutely everything to try and get past. Nearly everyone on the grid has a penalty besides Durex, Milster and El Humero. Red Bull, just not enough straight line for him to try and get past. Red Bull is right behind, and King Fenrir is out. King Fenrir leaves the session and retires, and that is King Fenrir, who was on for at least a podium position, now out of the Australian Grand Prix. So that promotes Red Bull up into 3rd, but what it does do is kick him out of DRS to the car ahead. 1.1 seconds the gap to Eden ahead of him, and will surely be draining his battery. Slayer Hart sets the fastest lap of the race, but the top 2, now with no battery to show, Red Bull now looks best placed. As we look at the penalty situation, all 3 of them having 3-second penalties. If the race were to end now, it would be the Works Mercedes that would win this race, but you would imagine that they will pull a gap. Red Bull is surely going to need to drain his battery everywhere he goes to try and get in the DRS here, but I don't think there's enough straight line for him to do it. It doesn't look like it, although no, as we go through the corner, I believe that was the DRS detection line. I believe he is going to get DRS. He will. Eden will not, and doesn't have any battery to deploy. So suddenly, this now falls into Red Bull's hands as he gains on the back of the Sauber driver. Only a handful of laps to go in this Australian Grand Prix, and there isn't going to be time, surely, for Eden to try and recharge that battery, as there's only about 4 corners until we make our way to the main straight, which I've said before is so long, and without any battery and no DRS, he will really struggle. He's managed to get about 30%, but is that going to be enough? Because Red Bull has double as we make our way onto the main straight to begin lap 25 of 29. It's H1 Jab that actually sets the fastest lap of the race right behind Red Bull, but with a second penalty, You wouldn't imagine he's going to be in there. Milster manages to get up into 6th place ahead of Pistol Racing. Now has to try and cut the gap down to Durex, who has lost a hell of a lot of time behind the Ferrari, 2 seconds to be exact. And Red Bull now in prime position to try and get through on Eden as we make our way now to this next straight and our next DRS zone. Good exit for the Aston Martin. No battery at all for Eden. And surely Red Bull is going to breeze past as he moves to the outside line. And Red Bull now takes 2nd place. Big Davlar on the soft tyres having issues at the back. He's gone backwards and is round. And Red Bull already into the DRS of Slayer Hart. So surely this is Red Bull's race to lose. Although Slayer Hart with the track position will not give it up without a fight. Eden in 3rd will definitely try his damnedest to get back in there. H1 Jab is also in there, albeit with his 6-second penalty. Red Bull will get DRS, and now surely the race's fireworks start to ignite. Lap 26 of 29 of this Australian Grand Prix, and it has been action all throughout. And now we've got ourselves a 3-lap sprint all the way to the checkered flag. And it is Red Bull chasing Slayer Hart. Both of them very experienced drivers, very quick drivers, know exactly what they need to do to win a Grand Prix. Now the question is, who will come out on top? It's a difficult one to answer. If there's anyone in chat, I'd love to know your opinion of who you think is going to come out on top in this race. Red Bull is really beginning to gain through the first part of this lap. 5/10 is the gap now, and surely this is going to be a chance for Red Bull to go through. Is he going to look to the inside line? He's going to stick behind for the time being, gives the wall a little kiss as he goes past, maybe for the last time in 2nd place. He's gone into none though. He knows that's not going to be a move worth making, as Milster is right on the back of Durex. To the inside line goes Durex, to the outside goes Milster, wheel to wheel as we go through. Milster with the better grip manages to get through, but is that all he can recover as we now look to the top 2 once more, and Red Bull sets after Slayer Hart once more. Is there time in it for him to try and make his way through? It doesn't look like it. Into turn 1, maybe into turn 3 there's going to be an opportunity, but it doesn't look like there's going to be enough straight line, and I believe that that is exactly the thought process that that Red Bull has as well, sorry. H1 Jab still sat in 4th place. Milster managed to retain 5th, but it will take him a while to try and gain back, and only 2 laps left in this race. And Red Bull once again sets after Slayer Hart, but he's made a mistake and has gone wide. And Eden now surely with a great chance to try and get back past as he looks towards the inside. He hasn't got the battery that Red Bull has, and this is crucial for the race. The Red Bull manages to stay ahead. He does manage to stay ahead. And now, rather than defending, he looks like attacking on the back of the V-carb. Is there opportunity for him to get through? There isn't. But we now look to the main straight, and surely there is an opportunity as we move on to the penultimate lap of this race. And this is absolutely incredible racing from absolutely everyone up and down the grid. Red Bull setting after Slayer Hart. Doesn't look like there's going to be a gap down the inside. He is gaining at quite the rate of knots, but gets the exit out of turn 1. A little bit of an oversteer moment as we hit the curb. The Ferrari of H1 Jab manages to get through on Eden. And there we go then. There's the move for the lead. Red Bull on lap 28 of 29. He picked his opportunity. He picked his moment and picked it well. The Aston Martin of Red Bull moves through into the lead. Comeback complete. Can Slayer Hart try and respond? He won't need to, because Red Bull has picked up a time penalty, and as long as Slayer Hart can keep it within the track limits, he's going to win this race anyway. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. This race has changed 3 times within about 5 corners here at this Albert Park circuit. Absolutely incredible stuff. Red Bull now leads. Slayer Hart with the advantage. You can't discount H1 Jab, who does have a 9-second penalty though. Eden is still in there as well. Milster just doesn't look like he has the pace to catch up at this moment. But we now move on to the final lap of this race, and Slayer Hart giving it everything through the final corner. He doesn't need to do anything. He can just sit behind. He could even lose position and he will still win this race, but still giving it everything, wanting to win it on track. And that is absolutely admirable from the V-Carb driver as we move through the first sector. And what a race this has been from everyone here in the Viking Racing League. And wow, I do not believe it. I've actually just got the leagues mixed up as well. This is the Misfits Racing League. I do completely apologise. But I'm absolutely speechless here. This is absolutely brilliant. Red Bull leads on track. Slayer Hart in second place, but will take the win unless something magical happens in the final few corners. Slayer Hart is gaining on Red Bull, does have a little bit more battery, will have the DRS. Is there an opportunity? He's gaining on the Aston Martin. He's going for it on the Aston Martin. Red Bull just manages to brake a bit later. And that safety car has absolutely changed the complexion of this race. Slayer Hart looked like it was going to be third. Now it looks like it's going to be the win. And as we come through the final corner, Red Bull will see the checkered flag first. But it is Slayer Hart who wins the Australian Grand Prix after an absolute corker down under. It is Red Bull, who I thought was going to finish second, but no, it's Milster, after an incredible final lap, who sneaks through to take second place. It's a double Aston Martin podium, with Red Bull finishing third. It's Durex, who's going to finish fourth. It's then Eden in fifth place, with H1 Jab in sixth. El Humero finishes in seventh. It's Hayes in eighth, with Pistol Racing in ninth. Ollie Southall gets the final points paying position. It's then Boakes in 11th, with Liggs in 12th, Ray in 13th. Big Davlar comes home in 14th, with King Fenrir and Max the Rat failing to reach the flag. But what a twist of fate that was at the final bell ring of this Australian Grand Prix. And it's Slayer Hart that comes out on top. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's Slayer Hart that wins the Australian Grand Prix, from Milster in second and Red Bull in third. It's Durex who finishes fourth, with Eden in fifth, H1 Jab in sixth, El Humero seventh, Hayes eighth, Pistol Racing ninth, Ollie Southall 10th, with Boakes in 11th, Liggs 12th, Ray finishes 13th, with Big Davlar in 14th, and our two retirees, King Fenrir and Max the Rat, failing to reach the flag. Well, what an Australian Grand Prix that was. Thank you very much to everyone that tuned in. My name's been JP. Thank you very much for watching. If you aren't already, follow the JCC Network account. We will be back very, very soon. Once again, thank you for watching. And from me to you, wherever you are in the world, take care.